In 2010, two Nobel Prize winners discovered that $75,000 a year was the sweet spot for happiness. After that income level, you're not any happier. Someone making $1 million isn't on average happier than somebody making $75,000. I like this study because it downplays the effects of wealth on happiness and creates a hopeful optimism, but it doesn't really sound right, does it? I'm pretty sure I'd be happier as a billionaire. In 2018, a Purdue study found that satiation for emotional well-being occurs at $60,000 to $75,000, but for life evaluation, it occurs higher. This study suggested that the ideal income for life satisfaction in America was $105,000 a year. And in 2021, a happiness researcher and senior fellow at the University of Pennsylvania found that not only does happiness not plateau after $75,000, but that experienced well-being can increase beyond $200,000. So factoring in cost of living, the minimum salary to be happy in America ranges from $88,000 to almost $200,000 a year. So if you're watching this and you make less than $100,000 a year, you're not happy. Another interesting thing researchers uncovered is that for some people, happiness actually declines after a certain income. It's easy to imagine why. Some people could be overworked and isolated from meaningful relationships. Some people might place the entirety of their self-worth in a quantitative metric that's easy to compare, and there's always someone richer than you. So in short, make a couple $100,000 a year, but don't go nuts, and you're guaranteed to be happy. Here's the thing though, I don't love this conclusion. It just feels kinda gross. Throughout history, chasing wealth has been portrayed as base or unenlightened. It's natural to hope there's a deeper meaning to happiness than your net worth. And sure, maybe it's a defense mechanism because we can't all be uber wealthy, let alone wealthier than everybody else. Even as I was looking for these resources, a lot of articles were like, yeah, we wish we could tell you that money doesn't make you happier, or it's definitely not the only thing that makes you happy. Definitely not. But money does make you happier. This is purely anecdotal, but during my MBA and career, I've on rare occasion had the opportunity to meet people you'd consider super wealthy, and they generally did not strike me as happier or less anxious than average wealth individuals. And if you ask people, would you rather be wealthy and miserable or unwealthy and happy, they'd choose the latter. It seems intuitive that happiness is one of, if not the most important value in life, and money is a means to that end, but it's not the only one.
But Mimir, didn't you literally advocate for prioritizing income in your How to Set Yourself Up for Success at 17 video?
I did my job. I'd do it again. Look, I'm not gonna lie to you and say money's irrelevant. Increasing my financial success is one of my goals. But there are ways to work on happiness that don't involve a financial cost, and I think it'd be cool to talk about some free tools you can use to be happier. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to satisfy the bottom rows of the pyramid before you can worry about what's above it. For example, it's really hard to attend to self-esteem and status if you haven't slept in a week. But let's take a look at the top row. Maslow studied what he called self-actualizing people. These individuals were the cream of the crop. They had to pass mental health criteria as well as have extraordinary achievements, societal contributions, and happiness levels for Maslow to take note. Maslow then compiled a list of characteristics he thought self-actualizers possessed. So, what did all these high-achieving, remarkably happy people have in common? They all made over $100,000 a year. No, they actually all as well as these other things. I think all of these traits are worth reflecting on, but in the interest of getting back to what's really important to me, I'm gonna narrow it down to 3 broad categories that money might make easier but cannot buy: perspective, values, and relationships. Some time ago, I read a book on happiness called The Happiness Hypothesis. I recommend. I'm not gonna summarize a 300-page book this time, but there are some metaphors and findings I'm gonna pretend I came up with that relate to your perspective on happiness. First, imagine the fast-acting, emotional, and automatic part of the mind as an elephant. Now imagine the slower, conscious, and reasoning part of the mind as a rider on top of the elephant. This is your brain.
On drugs.
This is also your brain not on drugs, it's just how we evolved. Now, the rider and the elephant can work together to perform their best, but if there's a disagreement about where to go, the elephant's gonna win. The rider does not control or command the elephant, the best it can do is train it. It's the reason in a war of attrition between willpower and emotion, willpower loses 100% of the time. While growing up to be big and strong, the elephant developed biases that are present in all of us. For example, we are designed to dislike negative things more than we like positive things. It hurts more to lose $1,000 than it is pleasing to win $1,000. This is called the negativity bias, and it's one of the ways the elephant helped humans survive. The elephant also has some oddities. A psychologist named Brett Pelham discovered that the elephant likes things which resemble our names, which results in stupid occurrences like people named Dennis or Denise being slightly more likely to become dentists and people being slightly more likely to marry others with names that resemble their own, like Peter and Penelope. Here's the tricky part. The writer doesn't want to appear totally useless, so it manufactures justifications when the elephant makes judgments that escape our consciousness. And when the writer does this, it always, and I mean always, paints us through rose-colored glasses. We are not only justified and rational for doing what we did, we are virtuous. The irony is that we excel at identifying self-serving rationalizations and biases in others, but we are really remarkably awful at seeing them in the arguments the writer makes about ourselves, even when they're pointed out and we're explicitly warned about them. This is called naive realism. I'm certainly not more likely to choose to live somewhere that sounds like my name. That's stupid. I would never do that. You might, though. The reason this is relevant to happiness is that our perspectives are constantly warped without our conscious awareness. We shine at seeing the negatives, we feel over-entitled, and we become frustrated or disdainful of others who, because of the same elephant we have, display hypocritical, esteem-inflating biases. So the first method to increase happiness is to not take our perception of reality for granted. If you're always surrounded by idiotic hypocrites who deliberately ignore their own shortcomings, is it possible it's not just everyone else? Is it possible it's unintentional? If everything is awful and nothing is going your way, is it possible the elephant's doing a great job keeping you apprised of potential dangers by focusing on the negatives? How might you use your understanding of the rider and the elephant to accept things you can't change and develop strategies that focus on the things you can change? Is it possible to foster an appreciation for the gifts of the elephant instead of a disdain for how you feel you should behave? Achievement satisfaction is short-lived. Think about how long a big win truly grants you happiness. A couple days, weeks, months? You get a promotion, win at the casino, you hit master rank. I mean, even winning an Olympic gold doesn't grant you elation for life. We've talked about how reinforcement works before on this channel, but positive or negative, it's best delivered immediately. It's how the elephant learns. Because of this, there's seldomly a long-lasting rush of euphoria when you finish something or attain something. It's like the old saying, anticipation is half the fun. Well, it might actually be more than half. This concept is called the hedonic treadmill, and it's stuck with me since I first heard about it in a Psychology 101 class in college. The idea is that we always return to a baseline level of happiness despite dramatic positive or negative events. In that book, The Happiness Hypothesis, the author asks you to imagine the best and worst possible thing that could happen to us, and proposes winning the lottery and becoming paralyzed. I was like, yep, those are good ones. And you'd think, obviously, that's gonna be life-changing on happiness. I mean, my first reaction is, I'm not even sure I'd prefer to live as a paraplegic. But apparently they've looked at this, and within a year, on average, lottery winners and paraplegics return almost to their baseline happiness. The brain is really responsive to changes, but not so much constant levels. If you want to learn more about this, then you can check out the sponsor of today's video, Shortform. Shortform is a book summary service that has different length summaries depending on how in-depth you want to get and builds on concepts by cross-referencing ideas with other books on the platform. It also happens to have the happiness hypothesis, so if you're interested, give it a look. If you go to shortform.com/Mimir, you'll get a free trial and 20% off the annual subscription. The link is in the description. The key takeaway is that it would be a mistake to think that happiness comes from the results instead of the journey, because that's not gonna work. At least not for long. One of the things Maslow noted about self-actualizing people is that they spend more of their time concerned with their values. For instance, justice. And even if they fall down to the lower rows of the pyramid, they still care more about their personal values than their basic values. If we extrapolate from that a method of actualizing that idea, I think it's not to get lost in the means to an end. For example, for me, money is a means to freedom, but my goal isn't increasing net worth, it's increasing freedom. And if I were to make money at all costs, I wouldn't find lasting happiness from that endeavor because I lost sight of the values that made me start prioritizing money. Does that make sense? You must ascertain what values you want driving your actions and feel like you're doing something meaningful. Making progress towards something you care about makes you happy. Incidentally, being in flow also makes you happy. It's the
Come on, Mimir, tap it in.
It's the
journey, not the destination. You got this.
The peregrination begets alleviation from melancholy, not the terminus. Finally, something we all know money really can't buy. Authentic, close, intimate relationships. Maslow says self-actualizing people have few intimate relationships that are deeper and more profound than others. It's hard to be happy if you've got no one. Weighty loneliness permeates everything you do. If you want some tips on connecting with others, check out this video. Thanks for watching. I know it can be tough out there sometimes, so good luck to everyone. If you like this video, consider subscribing so I know it's worthwhile to keep making content, and I'll see you in the next one.